General Heinz Guderian, serving as Chief of Army General Staff following his appointment in the aftermath of the July 20th assassination attempt, presented Hitler during an October 1944 conference at the Wolf's Lair with an assessment of the Eastern Front's strategic situation that combined the specific statistics of German and Soviet force comparisons with the operational trajectory of a campaign whose recent history left increasingly limited grounds for optimism about what German forces could achieve against an opponent whose advantages in manpower, equipment, and industrial production were compounding rather than diminishing as the war entered its final phase. The comparative figures Guderian laid before Hitler documented something that any objective analysis of the numbers had to acknowledge. Soviet forces massed along the Eastern Front possessed a numerical superiority in tanks, artillery, and infantry that exceeded the ratios German forces had successfully defended against during earlier campaign years, while German replacement capacity had deteriorated to a point where losses couldn't be meaningfully restored before the next Soviet offensive created additional losses that resources would cover even less adequately. The specific indicators that German intelligence assembled through autumn 1944 told a story of irreversible decline in the relative balance of forces that no adjustment within German strategic planning could realistically reverse. Soviet tank production had been sustaining output at rates that German factories, even under Albert Speer's rationalization programs and the total mobilization effort of the war's final years, couldn't approach. The T-34 variants emerging from Soviet factories by late 1944, including the T-34-85 with its upgraded main armament, combined the production volume advantages that Soviet industry had demonstrated throughout the war with qualitative improvements that narrowed the performance gap that German Panther and Tiger tanks had partially offset through superior individual vehicle characteristics. Soviet artillery concentrations that German intelligence documented along likely offensive axes indicated preparation for bombardments whose intensity would challenge any defensive positions German forces could construct with available labor and materials. Field Marshal Walter Model, who had been demonstrating throughout 1944 his capacity for sustaining defensive positions under conditions that other commanders might have characterized as untenable, transmitted assessments from Army Group North that connected specific operational situations to broader questions about what German forces on the Eastern Front could realistically sustain over the following months. Model's reports didn't traffic in strategic despair, but rather in the professional military calculations that revealed how narrow the margins had become within which German forces were operating. Margins that individual tactical successes couldn't consistently widen given the systematic disadvantages in replacement capacity, fuel supply, and ammunition availability that German formations across the Eastern Front were experiencing simultaneously. The fortress city concept that Hitler had mandated across the Eastern Front, designating specific cities as positions to be defended regardless of surrounding tactical situations, had been consuming garrison forces that defensive doctrine suggested should be employed as mobile reserves capable of counterattacking Soviet penetrations rather than holding static urban positions that Soviet forces could bypass and isolate. General Guderian's communications to Hitler through autumn 1944 repeatedly raised the fortress city problem, arguing that the forces trapped in these designated positions represented a form of strategic waste where substantial German military strength was being immobilized in operational situations that their static defense couldn't meaningfully influence, while mobile reserves capable of actually affecting the front's stability were correspondingly reduced. The response Guderian consistently received emphasized that the symbolic and strategic value of denying Soviet forces these positions outweighed the tactical costs their defense imposed, a calculation that the subsequent fate of most fortress garrisons would substantially challenge. General Ferdinand Schörner, who commanded Army Group South Ukraine and subsequently other Eastern Front formations, represented a different institutional response to the question of whether the Eastern Front's military situation had become hopeless, one that emphasized continued aggressive defense and maintained official optimism about German forces' capacity to hold their positions against Soviet offensives that Schörner characterized as ultimately limited by Soviet supply constraints and operational planning limitations rather than by irreversible German disadvantage. Schörner's approach aligned more comfortably with Hitler's preferred framing of Eastern Front challenges as problems of will and determination, rather than of material imbalance, making him the kind of commander whose assessments Hitler found more congenial than the statistical analysis that Guderian consistently presented. The psychological dimension of Hitler's processing of Eastern Front reality through late 1944 involved a complex relationship between information he was receiving and the interpretive frameworks he applied to that information. The statistics that Guderian presented were available to Hitler and weren't disputed in their factual content. What Hitler disputed was their strategic implication, maintaining that the material imbalances those statistics documented were being addressed through new weapons programs, through the anticipated political fractures in the Allied coalition, and through the demonstrated capacity of German forces under adequate leadership to hold positions against Soviet attacks, even when outnumbered. Each of these alternative explanations contains sufficient plausibility within specific, narrow frames to provide grounds for resisting the broader conclusion that Guderian's numbers pointed toward. The Me-262 jet aircraft program, which offered genuine technological capability that propeller-driven Allied aircraft couldn't match in direct performance, provided Hitler with one anchor for the new weapons argument, even as the fuel shortages that Allied bombing of synthetic fuel plants had created constrained the program's operational impact far below what its technical specifications might have achieved under different supply conditions. The V1 and V2 programs provided additional technological achievements that Hitler framed as representing Germany's capacity for qualitative innovation that might yet offset quantitative disadvantages, despite operational evidence that neither weapons system was producing effects on Allied military capability or civilian morale at scales that could meaningfully affect the Eastern Front's material situation. By January 1945, when Guderian had been warning for months about Soviet offensive preparations along the Vistula, and Marshal Georgy Zhukov finally launched the operation that Guderian had been predicting, the Eastern Front situation moved from the realm of strategic analysis into immediate operational emergency. The Vistula-Oder offensive advanced Soviet forces hundreds of kilometers in days, confirming predictions that Guderian had made and that Hitler had characterized as excessive pessimism rooted in insufficient faith in German soldiers' capacity to hold their positions. The Army Group A, under General Joseph Harper, whose defensive positions collapsed in the offensive's opening phase, had been organized on the assumption of static defense against an attack that Hitler's planning frameworks had consistently underweighted relative to what Soviet forces' actual preparation indicated they intended to execute. General Gotthard Heinrici, who would assume command of Army Group Vistula in March 1945, as Soviet forces prepared the final advance toward Berlin, represented the kind of professional military assessment that Guderian had been attempting to introduce into Hitler's strategic calculations throughout the autumn and winter of 1944 and 1945. Heinrici's tactical skill in conducting elastic defensive operations, withdrawing from forward positions before Soviet artillery preparations to reduce casualties, and then contesting the subsequent Soviet ground assault from secondary positions, acknowledged through its very execution that German forces couldn't sustain the kind of static defense that Hitler's stand-fast framework prescribed, while demonstrating through professional competence what was still achievable within the constraints that the Eastern Front's material situation imposed. What Hitler learned about the Eastern Front being doomed arrived through a sequence of assessments, statistical presentations, and operational outcomes that consistently pointed toward the same conclusion, while his interpretive framework consistently reframed each indicator as a temporary setback, a failure of will, or a problem addressable through new weapons or political developments, rather than as evidence accumulating toward the verdict that Guderian's professional analysis had been delivering for months. The replacement crisis that German military planners were managing through late 1944 captured in concrete terms what the broader force comparison statistics described in aggregate. German divisions on the Eastern Front had authorized strengths that organizational charts maintained, even as actual combat strengths fell progressively below those figures, creating the institutional fiction of formations that existed at sufficient strength to hold their assigned sectors, while actual effective strength made those sectors increasingly difficult to maintain against Soviet attacks that replacement systems couldn't compensate for fast enough. Guderian's presentations repeatedly emphasized this gap between organizational strength and operational reality, arguing that planning based on authorized rather than effective strengths produced orders that assumed capabilities German forces no longer actually possessed. The Ardennes offensive that consumed Germany's last significant Western armored reserve in December 1944, occurring simultaneously with the Soviet preparations along the Vistula that Guderian was warning about, compounded the Eastern Front's resource situation in ways that Guderian had argued against before the Ardennes commitment was made. The armored formations committed to achieving a Western breakthrough that their own commanders privately acknowledged was beyond what available forces could realistically accomplish represented the last strategic reserve that might otherwise have contributed to Eastern Front defensive capacity when Soviet forces finally launched the offensive that materialized in January 1945. The Eastern Front's doom wasn't a single moment of recognition, but a conclusion that the evidence demanded, and that institutional culture, political loyalty, and personal psychology combined to defer until the Soviet forces crossing the Vistula in January 1945 made deferral impossible, and the only remaining question was not whether the Eastern Front would hold, but how long the territory between the Oder River and Berlin itself could be defended before the war reached the conclusion that professional military assessment had been indicating throughout the campaign's final year. The forces that might have prolonged that defense had been consumed at Stalingrad, at Kursk, at Bagration, and in the Ardennes, each commitment reducing what remained for the final reckoning that January 1945 was delivering to a front that had been doomed longer than Hitler had been willing to acknowledge.